Hello, I'm Lisa Gray, Executive Director with the Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with Jamie Rice, Chief Investment Officer with JQR Capital Management. Thank you for joining me today, Jamie.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
And Jamie is our featured member for the month of February for the Chamber. So congratulations on that, Jamie.
Thank you. It's a great honor, and it's been a great month so far.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been a financial advisor.
Sure. Well, thank you again, Lisa. I am an engineer by training, so I spent about a dozen or so years as an engineer, and part of that was a Bachelor of Science in Naval Architecture from Webb Institute, and a Master of Science in also Naval Architecture from MIT. After that, I spent about 7 years working for the likes of Electric Boat and the U.S. Navy in Newport, Rhode Island. From there, I made the transformation from scientific research to investment research by way of an MBA at Dartmouth College. After that, I became a CFA Charterholder in 2006 and have been advising clients on their investments for the past dozen or so years. Some of those titles are Senior Portfolio Manager, Quantitative Analyst, Director of Research, and Chief Investment Officer at JQR Capital Management.
Okay, so you know what you're talking about when it comes to financing.
At least on paper.
So what are some of the most common goals you see people reaching for in their financial lives?
Sure. Well, people are unique in every way that they look at things and their goals in life. But three common themes that often come across are retirement. Most people in the U.S. work for a living, and at some point they say, I would like to kick back, enjoy hobbies, or spend more time with my family, or maybe even move somewhere south where it's a little bit warmer. So that's the primary one that a lot of people focus on. Also, Simsbury is a great place to grow a family, so putting kids through college is a huge undertaking for many families. And with college expenses rising 5, 6, 7% a year, that's another great hurdle that people have to get over. A third one that I've seen recently with a couple of new clients are the interest in having a vacation home out on the Cape. So obviously, whether it's a ski house, a boat, spending time fishing, or simply pursuing hobbies like cooking or something are often what people have for goals.
So do you see some common obstacles that people are up against when they're trying to reach these goals?
Sure. The number one obstacle is starting too late. And so I encourage people to start early. And it's human nature to say, oh, I'll do it next week or next month or next year. And all of a sudden, 5 or 10 years later, we realize our kids are right near college age or retirement's only 10 years off. And then time goes from being our helper to being against us. And so that's often a big challenge for people. A second thing is it's often difficult for us to overcome behavioral biases as we reach for goals or invest. And by that I mean we have our heads connected to our stomachs by a nerve, and when markets do all kinds of somersaults, gymnastics, whatever you want to call it, our stomach says, bail out, throw in the towel, and our head should be saying, invest more, invest more. And so those are two primary problems or challenges we have as investors.
And why do you think people should invest to help them reach these goals as opposed to just putting money in a savings account or under the mattress?
Yeah, so good point. We never know exactly when markets will go through the sky or down through the cellar. And so many people have been putting their money into savings. That's a better place to put it than perhaps other places. But with rates ranging from 0.1% to 0.3% at the bank, depending on how long you put it in there, that is still below what inflation has been running, 2% to 3% per year over a long period of time. And in fact, many stock markets in the world, the expected returns from lots of investors or models that I use are reaching, say, the 8 to 9% level over a very long period of time. So if we use the rule of 72, 72 divided by 9 would be 8 years in which it would take to double a person's money. At the bank, it would take decades to double that money. So that's a good reason for investing to reach those goals.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about some of the obstacles that people face. What do you see are some of the mistakes that people make when investing or when trying to reach
Sure.
these financial goals?
Well, the biggest mistake is and it's again human nature, to attach an emotional response to our money or our portfolio. And that emotional response is sort of hardwired into it. We have to be very careful about how often we look at our statements, how often we go online, whether we watch things go green, red, whatever it is on our screen, on our computer. And all those provide a stimulus that creates suboptimal decisions in our investments. So sort of pull ourselves back, extract us from that computer, or don't listen to too many of those headlines, or be very careful about where we get our news and how often. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I think I see for people. And another one is how far out we think about our investments. So somebody has 5 years to college for their kids. That's their time horizon. They shouldn't be worried about what's happening in the next 5 minutes or what happened in the last 5 days. If they're 20 years out toward college or toward retirement, that again is a long period of time, and they can afford to work through one or more market cycles to reach those goals. So again, the short-term focus for many people is opposite what they need to be doing. So finally, a third one that can help us avoid some of those biases or traps to fall into is to be very systematic about both our savings and our investments. And that's essentially one thing that I help people do.
So when you say being systematic, are you talking about the advice we hear often to make your investments or your savings part of your bills, treat it like it's a bill that you have to pay every month?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a system that you're putting money into that investment on a regular basis and helping it grow.
Exactly. There's the old phrase, pay yourself first.
Right.
And one example of that is I met a woman a couple of years ago, and she was at her house on a cold winter day like this, and I said, gosh, what brings you home today? Somebody's sick at home, or do you have the day off, or caring for a parent or something? She smiled and she said, no, actually I'm retired. And she was relatively young.
Yeah.
And I said, retired, that's great. How did you do it, if you don't mind me asking? And she said with a smile, I paid myself first.
Yeah.
And she was a teacher, so she wasn't making, a gazillion dollars per year, but she, like you said, set aside a priority of this is what's important to me and my family. I'm going to work hard toward this goal. And she reached her goal probably faster than she thought.
Right. So what are some of the advantages to people using an advisor when investing as opposed to trying to do it on their own? What type of value do you bring to the process?
Sure. Well, one of the biggest values is the ability to coach a client through difficult markets. And so I'll share with you a sort of funny little joke. It goes like this. The client says, the market goes up, you don't do anything. The market goes down, you don't do anything. Why am I paying you all these fees, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor?
Right.
And the advisor responds, so that when the market goes up and the market goes down, you don't do anything. So that's sometimes, again, going back to that nerve from our brain to our stomach. And what I would love to do as an advisor is to either clamp that nerve shut or reverse the polarity sometimes so that we do the right thing at the right time. So that's one main thing. And then another thing is there are lots of different account types for people to open up. And putting our money in the right places first, whether it's toward retirement, because nobody's going to pay us to retire. Social Security isn't as big and as sure a thing as it used to be. And so putting money into the right account types is a main thing that an advisor can do, and also accountability for goals. So I have one new client who said, I'm going to put away $300 per month toward this new retirement plan. And so every month or so when he doesn't contribute, I call him up and say, hey, Brian, what about that money that you said you were going to put aside? It's not for me, It's not for the coffee shop. It's for your retirement.
Right.
Pay yourself first. So those are some of the main things.
So earlier when you were talking about your background, you mentioned that you're a CFA Charterholder. What is that and why should that be important to us?
Sure. CFA stands for Chartered Financial Analyst, and it's a designation that's a little bit different from some of the other alphabet soup designations that people have. For one thing, it was started a little over 60 years ago at the encouragement of a guy named Benjamin Graham. Some people might know was the forefather of security analysis, and Warren Buffett was one of his students, so people probably remember that name
Sure.
a little bit better. And CFA Institute now has 100,000 global members who have achieved the charter, and each of those people has passed 3 rigorous exams that last 6 hours each, and over 4 years of experience at an investment decision-making sort of position. And so each of those levels of the exam tends to generate 250 to 500 hours of study. So for instance, I spent about 1,000 hours studying to pass those exams and get that charter.
Wow.
So it's no small undertaking.
That's intense.
So another important part of that designation is it's focused on fiduciary responsibility. And that's a term that's been thrown around the media lately quite a bit. And what it means is that my interests are aligned with the investors. I am not able, because of the ethical statement that I sign every year, to do something that is not in the best interest of my clients. So even if it costs me money as a business person, I still have to do the right thing for the client.
Right.
Other designations don't necessarily have that wording, and so I think that's one thing that sets it apart.
And what sets your firm, JQR Capital Management, apart from other advisors? What are you
Sure.
doing differently? What's
Well-
special about you?
Well, I'd like to think a lot of things, but a few things, again, harp back onto that idea of fiduciary responsibility. I've set up the fee structure for my firm as what's called a flat fee structure. And that means that as a client gets from one point to another, hopefully closer to their goal, I get paid more as a firm. If they go down in value due to market conditions or poor decisions, I get paid less. So I think those incentives are pretty well aligned for my firm and the clients. And another aspect of it is that because of my background, I'm very comfortable and eager to do the actual research for my clients. So if somebody says, hey, Jamie, why do you have this in my portfolio? Or how did that investment perform? I crunched the numbers, so I know the reasons why that's in there. And so those are two main things. A third one is that I am focused on local clients. So I'm not a big firm that has headquarters down in St. Louis or out in California. I'm a firm that is very active in the local community. I know my clients. I know where they work. I know that their kids are in such and such activities, and hopefully that brings value in shaping the direction of their finances, their investments, and ultimately their portfolios. So.
And one thing I've noticed about you is that you like to get to know your clients on not just a business level, but on a personal level as well. And you even go so far as to invite them on outings. I get your emails where you're having sailing trips, or you're having skiing trips, and you're inviting your clients. I think that's fantastic.
Well, I think I had a ski coaching friend a long time ago who once said, you can find out more about a person in 5 minutes playing a game than you can for 5 years working alongside them.
Right.
And so often when we go to those Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, business after hours, or other activities where people let down their walls or their guards a little bit, you find out who they really are as people and ultimately what's important to them. Because I can say, oh, you know, maybe somebody wants to retire, or they have so-and-so getting ready for college. The reality is they might have an aging parent and they're worried about where to get nursing care. And because of connections, in a local community, we might have some of those answers for them, and that's worth a lot more than any investment advice I could ever give, I think.
Yeah.
So.
What advice do you have for a client who might be seeking an advisor for the first time?
Sure. Well, first of all, don't put it off. So again, it goes back to the idea that it's human nature to procrastinate and say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, but do it today. And another part of that is we often feel that we aren't ready. We don't have enough money. We don't have all of our ducks in a row. Or I'm not big enough for an advisor to pay attention to and get personalized service. For some firms, that might be true, but for my firm, that is not true. And so I strongly encourage people to start today. In fact, that's sometimes some of the value that an advisor can do, is to help people bring everything together and say, oh, I'm actually doing better than I thought. Or I have this starting point, where do I want to go from here? Setting those goals again, whether it's budgeting or setting up the accounts. A second thing somebody should do is, there's a site, sec.gov, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they have a link called Broker Check or Advisor Check. And that link allows somebody to say, I live in Simsbury or Granby or Avon or Farmington. Let me look in a radius around my house, 5, 10, 25 miles, who is doing work that I need help with in that area. And from there, we can find out a lot of information about what the firm does, how long they've been in business, the person's background, who runs the firm, maybe even some black marks that might be next to their name from a regulatory standpoint. So that's sort of a second step. And a third step is to ask around. If we have a family member or a colleague at work who seems to be skipping down the aisles at work when markets are going up and down and all over the place, we might say, gosh, you know, it seems like this isn't affecting you. Are you using an advisor? How do you like them? What do you like most about them? What do you like least? And then finally, go and visit at least 3 of them, whether it's by Skype or some sort of video conferencing, or hopefully face-to-face, to get a sense for what do they know, what's their process, do I understand what they're saying to me? Because even the best advisor in the world, if they can't connect with their clients, the clients won't be able to follow their advice, and again, in a systematic, confident way to secure their future.
You mentioned that one of the obstacles people may be putting really in front of themselves is that they feel they don't have enough money to invest. Is there really a minimum to invest? I mean, can someone say, all right, I'm going to start with $25 and I've got $25 a week that I can put into this account? Is that a possibility for people?
It is. Not all firms are that way. My firm currently does take people. I could literally start somebody with $1 to get investing because of the platform that I use. And it's $1 or $25 or $100 that goes toward their future and not toward, say, the coffee shop or the person who plows the driveway or cuts the lawn, that type of thing. So
you've really left people no excuses for not investing. Investing, it sounds like, isn't just for the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, but it could be Joe, the garbage collector, you know, or even people, you know, middle class or working lower income jobs. If they have just $5, $10 a week that they can devote to it, it sounds like.
Yep.
That's what you're saying they should do.
Exactly. And even for parents who have kids who are just starting to get into school to read or to learn about math or the markets, we could even say, let's buy a fractional share of Disney or Apple or even Berkshire Hathaway that's priced in the tens of hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per share. We could buy $1's worth of their stock just to get somebody going or provide an education for them.
And definitely set an example for the kids too, and get them started investing early.
That's right.
That's always a good idea. Great. Anything else you'd like us to know today, Jamie?
Just thank you for this opportunity. It's great to see you again and to be here at Simsbury Community TV. This is a great resource, and happy Friday.
All right, thank you. Great to see you too, Jamie. This is Lisa Gray. I'm Executive Director with the Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, and I've been sitting here today with Jamie Rice, Chief Investment Officer with JQR Capital Management. Thank you so much for joining us.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.